Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast, proudly brought to you by Pat and George from Mortgage Choice, SCW. I'm your host, Tim Williams. Round one of NRL Supercoach is in the bag. Very, very exciting week to have footy back on our screens, and more importantly, Supercoach. Start off with an official apology to every Dolphins fan out there for absolutely giving them a shellacking during the preseason, boys, and they made me look absolutely stupid. And to be honest, I was absolutely stoked to be able to see them towel up the Roosters, aside from our Supercoach side, and James Tedesco as captain. They were sensational. I'll never doubt Wayne Bennett again. So congratulations to them, guys. Here to talk through this week's the preview of NRL Supercoach Round 2, Supercoach Spy.
Boys, how are we? Going well? Yeah. Cheers, boys. Yeah, look, that just shows a bit of inexperience on your behalf. You are a young fella still. You never doubt Wayne.
I know.
Especially game one. Maybe they fall off a bit as the year goes on, but how good were they? And like attacking footy, offloads. It was a good day for rugby league Sunday. Obviously not for Roosters fans, but I'm sure they'll be fine. They also lost to the Knights by 20 round one last year, so maybe we'll learn that lesson for 2024, or maybe they'll come good. But yeah, just good to have footy back, really, isn't it?
No, definitely not worried about the Roosters. They'll come good. Worried more about my integrity at this stage. Also with us is Mr. Adam Driussi, Quantium CEO. Mate, tough weekend for our sides, just quietly. Tigers down, Raiders down. Had your doggies very much down. How'd you recover after that one?
Thanks, mate.
That's right.
Very much. Straight India.
That. Yeah, no, it was a tough afternoon. Yeah, I thought we played better than the scoreline reflected. Like there was an intercept, there was a ball off a little grubber, there was a ball against 12 men. But I guess part of your defence, you have to cover those things as well. So, look, not panic stations. I think we can definitely play better than that, though. Yeah.
Mate, Franklin Pele, what was doing? Middle forward crisis at the doggies. Pele got about 10 minutes, was it? 8 minutes?
Yeah, 9. Yeah.
9 minutes.
Yeah, you were close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I thought he'd get more minutes as well. So he's in my side, so don't...
Yeah, we can't shoot you.
Yeah, don't shoot me. I've got him as well, so I think I'll have another look this week. But yeah, I would have thought he'd play more minutes. I mean, on the flip side, Max King was enormous. Like he played the full first 40 minutes and then still saved a try after the siren. I don't know if you saw it.
That was unreal. Putting that ball down in goal.
He's such a good player.
That's a coach's dream, seeing him play like that, isn't it?
And that's Max King, mate. He's a great player like that. He does the little things. So yeah, look, I was surprised by his minutes. It was a hot afternoon, but I'm not sure. I thought maybe he missed a tackle leading up to one try, and that got him earlier time. I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's right, mate. Also with us today, a bloke who did start on a winning note as a South Sydney Rabbitohs fan. It's Matty the Waterboy who, mate, we were en route to Armidale on the Bloke and Bar regional tours last Thursday afternoon it was, sorry, and we whipped your side together about 15 minutes before kickoff. How'd you end up?
I appreciate your help, mate. I kept saying that I'd do it. I don't know if I ever would have got there if I didn't have you in the front seat with me. I didn't go too well, actually. I started not bad. Started with, had like Harry Grant, Hopgood, and I was like, all right, I'm flying here. But then I ended the week with people like Mulatalo, who I love, but he only got 9. Pereira got 5. So I ended up with 913, which isn't great. But our Captain Teddy as well. So not the best start, but I'm sure like Teddy's not going to get 50 every week, and Ronnie's going to get more than that. So I'm not worried.
Yeah, we were on route to Armidale very late at night, and we got about 2 hours into our trip. We got to Raymond Terrace, and we pulled over, watched the footy, and we both had Harry Grant in our side. So when Harry went over in the Golden Point, just lost our mind at the Raymond Terrace Hotel there, whatever pub it was.
Yeah. Oh, mate, wasn't that a good pub?
Oh,
that was obviously our night went south from there. When Harry Grant scored, that was kind of the pinnacle. Almost cost you a few grand as well.
Put on a same game multi, and I was going Junior Borlo into Nelson or Sofa Solomona, both anytime try scorers. I was paying about 300 to 1, and me and Matty were laughing before about I've got to be sensible with same game multi this year. Do it right. Don't get too over the top. Just as I said to him, he goes, mate, what are we just saying? I go, yeah, no, you're right. So I brought it down, and when a Sofa Solomona put that ball down for the try after Paulo had scored, mate.
I felt so bad. I was so glad it got overturned because Fuck, I would have cost you like $3,000 or something.
Didn't eventuate anyway, and I lost the punt, so it didn't matter. Spy, how'd your side go this week?
Yeah, I think solid. 10.95, I believe, was the total to open up with. I think I'm 20,000th, but like I'm happy with that. It was a pretty solid round without being spectacular. But I think the thing you want to try avoid in round one is just a really bad experience. You know, if you have an absolute shocker and you've got to fix up a heap of positions and you're worried about things, that's probably, you know, not ideal. But I'm happy with my side generally, outside of maybe Franklin Pele, who obviously didn't see many minutes. But again, he's also bottom price. It's not like I picked someone worth 400k that didn't do anything. So good base, and yeah, hopefully just really kick goals early in the season, those first couple of rounds, and build on it from there. We'll see.
That's it, mate. It's like spoken as a bloke who didn't have a great start to the season. Round one to me is all about, you know, finishing the round and not going, shit, I've got spot fires pulled out all over my team and I don't have enough trades and whatnot. Like, I know a lot of people are sort of sitting there going, do I have to trade this week? Or, you know, maybe one trade, whatnot. As far as I'm concerned, if you're in that position, regardless of your score, you're not doing too bad. Ads, how'd you go?
Yeah, similar to you blokes. I got 11.09, so I was about 15k ranked, but obviously it's pretty close scores. Yeah, I'm the same as you. I think our sides are pretty similar. There's no obvious trades I have to make. Like, I've got Pele, but there's no obvious 200k front rower that anyone would be looking at saying he's a must. So I haven't missed out on any must cash cows. And I think, similar to you blokes, I want to see Jackson Ford play more this week to see whether and see Luke Garner. Like, does Garner go to Ford? We've got an extra week to watch and see. But yeah, it's a nice position to be potentially saving trades this week. Even though I would normally use as many trades as it takes in the first 3 weeks to make sure you got all the cash cows. There's no obvious player that I'm missing like you blokes, so yeah, pretty happy.
Yeah, as I said, pretty similar to you, Ads, here in that one. 10.43 for the Stallions. Not a great start, but to be honest, I don't think I've been in the top 20,000 after the first week of Supercoach in my entire life. So not exactly panic stations just yet. I was happy with all the minutes of players in my team, all the roles outside of the two you just named, Luke Garner and Franklin Pele, blokes who may or may not be on the chopping block this week. But again, even Luke Garner, Hosking named 18th man again this round. So I'm like, you know, Salmon wasn't the best on the weekend. Not that Garner was either, but does he get extra minutes? I'd love to give it another week. Pele was almost too bad to be true in terms of minutes, so I'd love to just give him one more week in case he does get 25 minutes and a couple of tackle busts and offloads. So not the end of the world. Guys, the Unlimited group code, if you want to take on the SC Playbook contributors, 845051. Jump into our Unlimited group. It is not a league. We've been overwhelmed by the support of SC Playbook in the preseason, particularly the last week or two with the subscriptions coming into the site. So as a big thank you to that, we're going to bump up the prize money for the Unlimited group to $1,000 this season. Give back to you for the support you've given to us straight away. So if it's a subscriber that wins it, it'll be $1,000. If it's a non-subscriber, it'll go 500 to them, and another 500 to the top-ranked subscriber behind that one. So very, very excited to upgrade the price there. Subscription package is available, of course, guys. NRL package, $40 for the season. The full NRL AFL BBL package for the year is $50. Gives you access to additional premium articles every single week, access to our WhatsApp community with threads around game day, team advice, contributor-only chat where we give our thoughts and trades. You've been on fire with that one, mate. Like, out of the absolute blue, recaps of every game with all the Supercoach talking points.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I just thought after I watched the first game, maybe it's because I knew you weren't watching the game. I can't remember. I thought, I'll send through some thoughts, and then people said like it, so I thought I'll keep doing it. I can't promise I'm going to do it every game because
no, mate, you've set the bar now, so yeah, obviously add that in.
You just said you were going to watch all the games this week, so
I'm happy to.
I'd be interested in your thoughts as well. Yeah, no, it was good fun anyway.
I was in.
It was hard to send the Bulldogs one though. I was out there at Brookie still. I thought, oh god, I got to do it. I can't be biased. That was hard.
Friday night, I was doing the show in Armidale and didn't really see much footy, and I remember speaking to you yesterday about it, saying how good they were, and you're like, oh, hope people got a bit out of it. I'm like, I saw them Friday night, went through every bit of it going, you beauty, shit. So golden stuff that. So plenty more access to that, my Q&A each and every week of the Supercoach season. Head to the menu on site at scplaybook.com.au to find the subscription tab. Today's show, the key takes from Team List Tuesday. Pretty kind to us today, fellas, which is outstanding, thankfully. No too many dodgy ones in there. Ads will be going through his true player ownership data, which is, I think, the best data in Supercoach going each and every week. Hot topics, what we learned from round one. Big watch on the minutes and rolls there, of course, and our round two trade and skipper plans, then finishing up with a few listener questions. Boys, starting off with Team List Tuesday. The first one being the bloke we just spoke about. No Zach Hosking. Sorry, when I say no Zach Hosking, been named at 18th man again. Do we see Spy ourselves giving... You didn't start with Luke Garner, did you? Or did you?
I didn't, only because of their upcoming bye.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have been pretty keen. So, I mean, we don't really know at Penrith. I would suspect, if I'm taking a punt, I think Garner's minutes probably increase as the year goes on. But, I mean, we just don't know, do we? Anything could happen out there. Hosking is a good player as well. Time will tell, mate.
Ads, I believe you are a Luke Garner owner, and said not too many spot fires to put out. So he is one that in trying to get a step ahead for next week, where I think there's going to be a lot of good buys emerge. Like, there are so many people who look decent, but there are so many anomalies across the round one of scoring. We see it each and every year, and it'll continue to happen where they have one good round, people jump on. I want to see minutes, rolls, all those things I should say over the first 2 rounds. So ideally, I'd like to keep Garner, but on 50 minutes at an awkward mid-range 430k price, considering cutting.
Yeah, he's the one guy, if I make a change this week, I'd be getting rid of him. Only because I wasn't even convinced when he was on the field. So I wasn't... I know we all thought, Panthers left side, they're so good with it, he'll benefit from that. I thought their left side looked really scratchy with him there. Like, Doueihi threw several balls to ground. Like, they just looked... I don't know, just so different with our big Villy army there, having defenders wondering who to defend. Like, Luke Garner's just not the same player. And then going off after 50 and then Jamin Salmon coming on. And I actually thought Jamin Salmon played okay when he was on. I don't know. Yeah, anyway, I'm just not convinced by him. So I might trade him out just to get the cash. Then next week I've got more flexibility with the 2 or 3 trades that I'll use next week. But we'll see.
I think the biggest one there you noted was you can actually get ahead of a trade next week. So this time next week we'll be going into round 3. Prices will be changing. If we can get 2 or 3 valuable trades in that week, we'll know exactly who to target. Whereas this week, as you said, anomalies happen. It's hard to tell. So if you can make a trade that you're not certain you want to do, but maybe you get ahead of the game, it could open up an extra trade for next week. It could be pretty valuable.
Yeah, the 2-game sample size is a lot better than 1 game. We'll learn a lot more from this week. Jai Arrow and Tavita Totola out for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Big middle forward crisis there, Spy. It should only open up more minutes for Shaq Mitchell and Davey Moali, who are both quite good on the weekend. Both got decent time. I think they scored, was it early to mid-40s. Good cheapie options. I'm a Moali owner. I don't own Shaq, but again, they're like Totola got KO'd in the first minute of the game. Jai Arrow played 22 minutes. You still want to see the true minutes, don't you?
I think that's maybe the worry. So Jai Arrow, he went off. He actually started off the bench. Then I expected him probably to play huge minutes.
Because they were so light on middles, straight up they just went cheek ham to an edge and they said, Jai, you're playing as a middle.
He got busted, so that's at least 40 minutes extra from the weekend that maybe they don't get this week. Made some notes, but there's a host of guys out. Maybe they return soon as well, a couple of them. Maybe the rotation looks different this week with Arrow's replacement coming in and playing bigger minutes potentially. I mean, you're cheering if you own someone like Moali. I don't, but I'm pretty hesitant to go Pele to Moali in case I waste a trade and he plays 25 minutes.
Ads, Connor Tracy has been named as the bench utility for the Sharks. So obviously started round 1 with the big 4-forward bench. There was all these issues around Teague Wilton. Was he going to play 80? We thought he needed 80 to be significant, or relevant, I should say, in Supercoach. Wade Graham's copped I believe, a 3-match suspension, potentially even 4 if he challenges. I don't know where that's at the moment, but with the utility on the bench and no Wade Graham, surely that locks in Teague Wilton, who was pretty good in round 1. Not a massive work rate, scored a try, no line break, but solid enough nonetheless.
Yeah, I was happy to see that. I thought Teague Wilton was one of the big question marks for my side going in. I think you were the same, thinking, is he going to play 80? Because if he plays 80, I'm happy to have him inside, but if not, then you start worrying. And obviously he played 80, which was a good start, and then seeing Wade Graham not on that bench, I feel good for the next few weeks there. So yeah, I'm very happy with that one. Very
happy about that for big boy Teague. Spy, Latrell Mitchell named. Obviously, he suffered a suspected, might have been a PCL injury there. The fact that he's been named, they're obviously relatively confident. May drop out come game day. We will know by Thursday night. Obviously, a tough game with the Panthers now, who will be hurting from that round 1 loss to Brisbane. If you're a Latrell Mitchell owner, let's say he does play this week, would you stick by him or would you be tempted to sell?
I think you have to stick by him. The great NRL physio did note that possible performance issues based on a PCL injury, even if he does play. So I think he probably sits in the basket. You see how he looks this week against Penrith. It'd be probably worth trying to find out how long it takes to recover and get back to a bit of peak performance for that. I mentioned NRL Physio there. He does have a subscription thing I'm on, and it's fantastic for that sort of info. Like,
so good.
The stuff we don't know, he might come out and say, oh, he should be fine by next week regardless. That's pretty important, but realistically, I couldn't be selling a Trell. Let's see how it goes this week. If he doesn't score many and he maybe doesn't look in himself, have a pretty big break even next week, and then maybe you can drop him down to someone who's going to make a ton of cash. But I mean, I think you pick Latrell. He's got a good run coming up. Hold on, because they do have a really good run coming up to sort of around 3 or 4 from memory.
Yeah, the best thing with physio's injury profiles, like it's not hard with all the information out there to find out generally how long a player might be out for if they do miss, naming the squad, but it's as you said, the Supercoach performance, how it's impacted by it, and if there's a reduction or, increase, that sort of stuff, it's so good. So
now I can pepper him for questions as well after giving him a plug.
That's
so
why
that was tactical.
Yeah. Tane Milne named in the reserves to return from suspension. Spy, I believe we're Thompson owners. You a Thompson owner?
No.
Not a Thompson owner. 9 tackle busts on the weekend.
I know.
Yeah, in a tough old matchup against the Sharkies there. So
And an offload.
So no tries or anything, but really promising for Isaac Thompson.
He looked slow on the right edge. I can't remember how it happened.
Be as slow as he wants, just bust tackles.
I was at the pub and I was a few too many schooners down by that point. Might have been the second half, and he was heading towards the try line. He just couldn't quite make it.
I didn't see that game. That's because I had my daughter's 18th birthday dinner, so that was the game I missed. Are you happy to have him in your side? Like, is he worth? So for me, if I want to downgrade, say Brian To'o next week, is Thompson happy with Thompson?
Yeah. So I probably won't play him again this week because I think Penrith might do a bit of a number on the Bunnies just because they got no middles. I just think opportunity for Thompson, particularly on the right edge at the Bunnies, the less favoured. The less favoured edge, although with how good Illich was on the weekend, maybe we'll see that right edge come a bit more into the game.
Campbell Graham got a couple of tries.
Yeah.
That just as easily in coming weeks can become Thompson as well. I know there was one time Latrell half double pumped and he went short to Campbell Graham. He could have easily hit Thompson, so I expect that to open up in coming weeks.
With that draw, I was very happy to potentially sit him outside of the 17 for the first 3-4 weeks till it softens up. I think he could be, essentially a slow burning CT dub, probably going against the norm of how CT dubs make their money of being a roller coaster. I could see 3 to 4 weeks of slow scoring, but when the soft games come with the Bunnies, who looked excellent, I can see him going real good.
I played him over Khan Pereira, so he's 30 plus in my books.
Well played, yeah.
He actually doubled Khan Pereira's score, or tripled it, in tackle busts alone.
Adam Elliott out for the Knights with a groin injury. Poor bugger, cannot get rid of that one. Greg Marju is in, the bloke we all expected to be there round 1. He did miss with, I believe it was an injury, might have been illness or something, but so big watch on Marju because, we're talking about Kalen Pong on that left edge and the left wing being a golden spot. Heimel Hunt scored a try in that one.
I don't think he's in the 17, is he? I think he's in the
extended bench, is he?
Extended bench.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got to wait and see if he's actually going to play come game day, but he's obviously close.
Okay, not far off the mark. The big one was one of the bigger takes on TLT. Jack Bird named it lock for the Dragons with Ben Murdoch-Masila, very cheap. I believe he's around about $230K. Named starting the edge for the Dragons. So, I mean, would have been bold to start with him, but a big watch this week, Ads.
I hadn't seen that one, actually.
Yeah.
I was happy with Jack Bird because I got him in my draft side, but didn't realise Ben Murdoch. It's one of the interesting things with the draft, with the bye in the first 3 weeks, is that usual rush after round 3 to work out who do I bring in. Like, we've got an extra week on him. If he does go well in his first 2 games, we can bring him in round 4. So it's
magic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice.
And
it's
someone
a bonus
like,
to the bye rounds.
Even if we hold on to someone like Pele and he doesn't do well, even if he doesn't do well next week, he doesn't have any money to lose.
Yeah.
So then you can flip him up to Murdoch-Masila if needed. So
that is exactly what I was thinking. Is Pele to him if he does well, and I said you might need to wait that extra week. We can get a better idea on guys like Mo Ali and Shaq. So a bit of a watch there on the edge. And the last one, Kieran Foran, named to play on the edge for the Titans. Now, he'll obviously have to pass fitness tests on what was a suspected PCL injury, but just the fact that his name, I think it's great news for Dave Fifita, who with both Fermor out suffering that ACL injury last week, devastating for Fermor. Fifita moved to that left edge, was within about 20 minutes of that game, falls to Fifita, straight through.
Pretty much his first touch, untouched at the line, in and away Fifita goes. Also really huge for Khan Pereira.
It is. Despite his 8 or whatever on the weekend.
Worth noting that, and we'll get to Boyd later, but the Titans had no ball They had no field position the whole time, and they scored 3 or 4 tries just off one play things that happened. One off a scrum, couple off kicks. So they didn't spend any time in the 20 to set up for attacking. So things could totally change once they get back in the red zone there. But Tigers just physically dominated territory, and then just couldn't find points in the red zone on the weekend, which I've got some thoughts on maybe for later. But I think Cam Pereira is someone I really wanted to play this week against Saints. My other concern playing him, though, obviously after scoring 8, is Saints haven't had a game yet, so they're fresh.
They're ready to go.
We saw how good every team was defensively over the weekend as a general thing. They're ready to turn up early in the year. It's not late in the season where blokes are falling apart and that, so I'd be tentative to play him, but he is, at the same time, he could score 3 easily.
But if Foz wasn't there, or if he isn't there, there's not a chance you play Cam Pereira, because so much of, aside from his price, the impact is Foz playing there, creating the space out wide, and it just becomes, again, a bit of a gold mine, I think. Round 1, not so much, but Foz also did go off early in that one. So hopefully, for all those blokes' sake, Kieran Fraun's good to go. Guys, Paddy and George have mentioned to me that they're getting a lot of you guys contact them recently about debt consolidation. If you have a few different credit cards or loans with multiple repayments, they can merge them all into one loan with a single repayment at a much lower rate, meaning less stress and more money in the pocket. That sounds unreal. It's a great option for a lot of people with their debt getting out of hand. I know it can also be a bit of a sensitive issue for some, but rest assured you're not alone. There's many people in the same boat, and Pat and George are always there to help out. Better yet, mention you're an SC Playbook listener and they'll give you a free plan on how to get your debts in order. That's $129 saving, enormous. They've also mentioned there's been a lot of referrals from SC Playbook from people based outside of New South Wales, a lot of Queenslanders as well. They've also opened up a store up in Brisbane. So anyone preferring the face-to-face side of things, available there for anyone wanting to get in touch with the boys. If you do want to get in touch with them, there's ads for them boys with their email, everything just about in all our articles on our website. Also, you can direct message them on Instagram at Pat and George Mortgage Choice. Fellas, let's get stuck into our hot topics from round 1 and leading into round 2. So, Ads, we'll start with you, mate. True player ownership data. I mentioned it before. Absolutely golden stuff. If you could, I suppose, just talk through to anyone new to your data and potentially the SC Playbook podcast, what it is exactly.
Yeah, so what happened a few years ago, I got frustrated with looking at that player ownership data on the Supercoach website. So when you click in there and say, hey, what percentage of teams own a certain player, it just didn't feel... I remember at the time seeing certain players that might say that 40% of teams owned him, but every team I was looking at around me all owned them, and that player was Manu Maeu at the time. And so
what a gun.
Yeah.
Available in the centres.
Yeah, and everyone had him because he was a gun. But the website said only 40%, and it was all those ghost teams at the end of the year in particular that didn't have him. They just kill those stats. So anyway, I've got a guy that helps me out in India to help me scrape the data from the website to be able to actually compile the data to be able to look at the top 100,000 teams and then see what percentage of teams in the top 100, the top 1,000, top 2,000, whatever it might be, own each player. Now, I noticed this year on the website now, you can go in and select top 1% of teams and top 5% of teams of ownership, which is an improvement from the side. But a couple of things. First of all, it's just very hard to go and compare easily for play. You have to click in each time, and it's just hard to then see who stands out as being different. So I find the way they presented the data quite pretty unusable. And it's also just littered with mistakes at the moment. Like, it's just playing up the website. There'll be players that it says are owned by 30% of the top 1% of teams that really actually no teams own that player. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe that'll just take a few weeks to fix. But I would just say if you're looking at that data, it is a bit unreliable at the moment. So yeah, I've pulled together the data, which we'll send out really not long after this. I can send it to you and you can send it out.
Yeah, the article will come out each week with all that and just put together very nicely, easy to read, and my most read story of the week by a mile.
Yeah, look, I think obviously this week it's a bit obvious, right? So you're going to look at, okay, who the leading teams have? Well, not surprisingly, the leading teams are going to have DCE and Garrick, and because they're the two highest scoring teams of the week. But there's a couple of things that I think just demonstrates like round 1. So if you look at something like 5/8, so overall I think Matt Burton and Adam Doueihi are pretty much the same owned across all teams. About 30% of teams own them both overall. Whereas if you look in the top 20,000, 11% of them own Burton and 67% of them own Doueihi. So it's just a great example of this week. If you had Doueihi instead of Burton, you're much more likely to be in the top 20,000 than not. Now, I think what then tends to happen is a lot of people can say, I need to trade Doueihi to Burton in round 1. Well, the exact opposite could happen in round 2, right? Like, and that's the nature of sometimes those attacking positions where the players get upside. Like, the Bulldogs scored 1 try, so Matty only had 1 kick at goal, and he didn't have a happy day. But he's a great player. He could easily come out and reverse that. So I wouldn't be panicking this week on 1 week of data.
That could change straight with Burton and Doueihi, but that was the big talking point of the pre-season, wasn't it? Between who we go, Doueihi and Burton. I think potentially at one stage all three of us had Burton. Thankfully for Supercoach and for this panel anyway, that Burto, you mentioned last week, he was a bit crook in that second trial and it was more of a training gallop for him. That sort of turned us off him. And I think we might have had Doueihi anyway, but I know I was running a Burto combination with him, so it's only 1 round in, but so far it's a knockout win.
I was about to correct that blasphemy. I thought you were suggesting I wasn't starting with Doueihi. But yes,
I always had Doueihi too.
I did consider both at one point.
Yeah.
Doueihi's a great Supercoach player, and you watched him on the weekend. And even in a losing side, like he just looked threatening every time he had the ball. And he's a big guy. He runs. And like it's a year later after the ACL, I just think he
had so many touches.
He's
My only thing I'm filthy at is I didn't captain him. I did not have it in me to do it round 1 and 45 extra points or something. But that's all right. Sometimes you got to play the percentages, which is fine. It'll work out in the long run.
He's a gun. So I won't dwell on these numbers this week because they're all a bit obvious.
Yep.
But there was something else I was going to mention, but it'll come to me in a minute.
Well, I'll tell you my favourite part of these. I love them week to week, but as the season goes on, you might look at someone and think, oh, I'm going to bring in so-and-so, player X. Let me just see how he's tracking. And sometimes he's way more owned than I realised. That's probably not going to help me much. I'd rather someone maybe under-owned. Or conversely, I'll go to bring someone in I think is reasonably well owned in the top 1,000 or whatever it may be. And they might be like 15% when I expected 40 or 50. I go, thank you very much. Bang, straight in. And it gives me some confidence to have a crack and bring those fellas in rather than someone that might be 70%, which is a little bit like a neutral sort of play, which can be the move, but just let you decide tactically what you want to do there. It's magic.
Yeah, if you're going to make a pod, like you're trying to bring in a pod, and then you actually want to look at the teams around you or ahead of you to see is it actually a pod or not. And there's no point in bringing one in if it's not. Like it's actually all you're going to do is cancel out your scores with the teams above you. So yeah, that was the idea. That's why I put it together in the first place because I was trying to work out what to do for my team, and I was frustrated thinking, oh hold on, if I do this, 40% of teams don't have them. And I looked around, I'm like, hold on, they've all got that. So
this is how you sort of, I suppose, got in contact with SC Playbook because you were sharing it with Desi Creek the year he won at 2019 and you finished, top 20 odd that year?
Yeah, about 30th or something. Yeah, I was in the top 10 for a while and then I dropped out. But I was never going to win because Des was so far in front. But
imagine if you finish second behind Des by a handful of points and you'd been giving him this golden data.
Yeah, that'll be okay, mate.
He's right, he's a good fella.
I'll be happy for Des. Yeah.
All that data is available at StatHQ on the SC Playbook website, our big data segment to the website. Improving that each and every single day. The way Ads does his data, as you said, the way he displays it, though, is fantastic in the article form, really easy to read. But if you do want to jump in and look at an individual player, jump in there, a bit of analysis to come with it as well, obviously.
Well, the one thing I did pull together, actually, was just to see the buy impact. So I had a look to see what percentage of teams own the big Manly players are out this week. So to give you an idea, say across the top 20,000 teams, on average they've got about 3 players missing, pretty much 3.0, which I think is a lot. I think it's a lot in round 1 because a lot of those leading teams have got Garrick, they might have DCE, they've definitely got Turbo. And so I actually reckon the buy each week is going to have an impact. So I've tried to think with my team about when they're going to have a buy and have players that are going to play those first 12 weeks because we can easily react too much to week, but we've got to look and think, okay, over the next 10 weeks, who's going to have a higher average? So, yeah, it's a good example of a lot of those leading teams are going to struggle this week with the buy impact, I reckon.
Yeah, quick story on that today, Ash. I was at work. Fella came down. He just realised we love our Supercoach now, footy. He goes, how'd you go, mate? I don't think he's played this Supercoach more often, maybe fantasy. And he goes, I said, how'd you go, mate? He's like, score this. Like, you've done well. He goes, yeah, Captain Cherry Evans, free hat-trick. Like, you did what? So I was like, fair play to you, mate, fair play.
Yeah, he'll be on the panel next week, the big fella, if you can keep that form up. Guys, continue on with the hot topics, and we'll start with the highest traded in plays for the week thus far, into the most traded out, into a bunch of other stuff. Jermaine Isaako, $383,000, the most traded player in this round, tonned up. Spy. The Dolphins were wonderful on the weekend, but they were so up for that game. It was like their intensity levels were unbelievable. Can they back it up round 2? I'm not convinced on Jermaine Isaako. And you've also got a bit to touch on around break-evens for people new to Supercoach as well.
Yeah, a few important points before I get into Isaako. Firstly, your average, when your price goes up, it's based on a 3-round average. So your first score, your second, and then whatever you get that week. What you'll find is, for blokes that went really well in round 1, especially cheapies, they'll have potentially one good price rise in them. But if their second and third round scores aren't what they were in round 1, by the time you get to their second price rise, which isn't much, their break even could be right down low again, because the good score will have rolled out of those 3 rounds. Now, just on break evens, if you're sitting there and you're not actually sure what it is, obviously plenty of new players to the game in that. A break even is essentially what a player needs to score on any given week in order to make money. So if you're break even 70, that player's got to make 70 points or he'll lose money. Any above it, you make it. So
we'll refer to them over and over and over again on the podcast.
Yeah, important to know. And if you've got any questions around that, just hit us up, ask away, because sometimes we might forget we say something that not everyone knows. But yeah, I think it's really important. Jermaine Isaako, the perfect example of this, he could easily come out this weekend and score 35. Then you have a look and he might score 35 again, which means, yeah, he might make 30, 40k or something in the first round, but then he'll have 2 35s in his average. And his break even, which we just spoke about, could be up around 70 again. So he might have made 30k and then he's back to square one. So for me, I think he's just a classic watch here. If he comes out and scores 70 or 80 again, I'll probably grab him next week, take that money and possible upside and maybe use him as a stepping stone to someone else. But I mean, unless you got something you really need to fix up, I just don't think it's worth going to him just yet. Let's see what the Dolphins can produce and see how his work rate is and go from there.
I'm not convinced on him at all at this stage. Even next week with a solid score, I won't be. If he comes out and, goes 80 plus next week, you probably use him at very least as a cash grab. But where do you sit on him?
I'm not remotely interested in the moment. He'd need to, if he posts 100 again, then you might need to do it for the cash. But then you'd have to look at burning 2 trades. We could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past with some big ones like this, but he's just not a Supercoach player for me. Like I know he scored well on the weekend, but he wasn't like he was busting 8 tackles, scoring solo tries. Like he was on the end of backlines putting the ball down.
Yep.
So we've seen him for a number of years. Why is he suddenly going to be a Supercoach relevant player out of nowhere? I don't believe it. So I wouldn't be.
He had some really good scores at fullback previously, but he is on the wing now, so you're relying on those attacking stats coming
his numbers this afternoon. So in 7 games on the wing in 2022, he averaged 36. That was for the Broncos, who were a top 4 team at the time. In 5 games on the wing in 2021, he averaged 45.6. Not bad, but doesn't exactly reassure you. So
only thing I'd say there is last year, for example, Reynolds would have been kicking, so maybe he can add 10 with the boot, which gets him 46 at that price. Yeah. But he also was playing for Brisbane, who they were firing.
They were. They're top 4 team.
Right? Like it's 383k. Yep. What do you do? Are you downgrading a To'o to Isaako, or are you upgrading? Well, are you upgrading a chant? Like, I don't know what you're doing.
I think what you do, you wouldn't be chasing it. It's if you've got someone sitting there next week and he scored well again and you go, I need to get rid of this guy. Instead of using one trade to go straight to player X, you might use that one extra trade to potentially make 100, 120k.
Yeah, fair enough.
And maybe he keeps going, well, you take that pump. But yeah, you wouldn't be sort of getting rid of someone you're happy with.
And you don't want to have to move another player somewhere else in your team to bring him in and suddenly burn.
Might be an opportunist thing if it works for you.
Yeah.
Fellas, Jermaine Hopgood. Holy dooly. 84 minutes, 57 tackles, 5 offloads, 20 runs. Look, we're not going to spend much time on him. He's the second most traded in, as he should have been. I don't know what you're doing if you didn't start with him, but Spy, if he keeps that up, he'll be up there with firing Cleary and Tommy Turbo as a skipper option every week.
What a gun.
Oh.
Absolute gun. Just it's taken to round 2 for me to do this, but I haven't sledged my good mate Matty Ryan yet this year. Spent a bit of time with him over summer and we forged a bond, but I haven't forgotten that he beat me last year for the first time ever and I'm coming after him. So it's actually Spy versus Matty. It's my revenge tour and he's named his team after last week, Jermaine How Good. So he's not a comedian. Hopefully he can keep up his Supercoach prowess to at least test me this year.
Yeah, a bit of a bugger. The one disadvantage of the podcast, and I mean the only disadvantage, aside from seeing our mugs, of course, of coming in studio this year, is we've got such a great, list of contributors to come on the podcast. Clem, Wiles, a few others, and Matty Ryan being another one. Can't get them into the studio for it. So there'll be ways to integrate them throughout the year, and I have plenty of plans. I think we've got Clem lined up to come on in a few weeks' time. That'll liven proceedings a little bit.
Nice.
Matty,
she actually is funny, unlike Maddie.
Oh, yeah. So Matty Ryan, we're hoping he gets home in that international break, middle of the year, about June, July. So the soccer boys normally get their break. So we'll get you. Geez, there'll be some war of words between then and you, between him. So
it'll be on.
Might not be able to have you on the same panel by that stage. Fellas, Hamiso Tabuai, Fido, third most traded in, 330k, 70 odd on the weekend. The biggest thing for Hammer, I think 17 or 18 runs ads. He's that 50k cheaper than Isaako, which I like. Exact same as Isaako. I'm not going near him this week for all the same reasons, but people flocking to him.
Yeah, again, I'm the same as you. I think let's have another look at him. I remember last year when you brought him in cheap at the end of the year, didn't you, in one buy round or something? And
I brought him in for I think it was the first major buy round. Yeah. Played him in that buy round. I think he might have scored a double for 80 odd points.
Yeah.
But then, like, talking about break evens and whatnot, I was like, sweet, I'll earn a stack of cash off him here. I think the second week after that they had him, when players came back, I didn't play him, but he scored about 11 points or something. So I got my points from him and he earned a bit of cash, but it doesn't take long for that to drop down.
Yeah, I'd say if you're tempted by him, just go back and have a look at some of his scores over the last 2 years. There's some low ones in there, but he did look good to the eye, like you said. He played well, so if he does that again, he would be tempting, I reckon. Just if he plays like that again, not just scores like that.
If him and Isaako have the same output, and Isaako goes 100 and Hammer goes 70, I know break even rise and money cash gen Isaako will be more tempting, but like I'd probably looking further at Hammer Spy.
Well, yeah, you're spending way less cash on him for a start, and he plays fullback. He's going to get more touches. He's a very good footballer, as we know. He's played Origin. His support play was outstanding on the weekend. If he touches the ball in space, he scores. So, yeah, one to watch. I think we're all pretty keen just to see how the Dolphins played out, and I still stand by that. Let's see how they look this weekend. After, as you said, they couldn't have been more up for it on Sunday. If they show us the goods, we can go there. If not, we'll reassess next week, really.
He'll just have a bigger role in that team, right, than he did at the Cowboys. Like, it's almost like he's suddenly expected to stand up and play, which he did last week. A bit like Jeremy Marshall King and Hooker. Like, those guys now, like, they're key part of that spine. So, yeah, look, he was pretty good, actually. Much better than I was expecting.
Yeah. Me too, mate. Again, wasn't convinced. Still not convinced, but couldn't have been any more impressive in round one. So, we'll see. If the Dolphins were the biggest shock team of the round, Josh King, probably the biggest shock player of the round, played 80 minutes for the Storm, 96 points. A bit of a blow is that he's only available at 2RF, second row forward. Question from Michael Roberts came in. Is King a bit of a trap with Kami Kamitha and Tarek Sims due back? I think Kami Kamitha's a few more weeks away. Still no Tarek Sims' name for the Storm. Very popular, boys, but again, you want to see another week, don't you, Spy?
Oh, I think you definitely do. Owned him last year for a while, I think, when he was quite cheap, and he's a reasonable player. He has a crack, but he's also not... I mean, he might have improved over the offseason. He did play well, but he's not a powerful body. So, I mean, whether they want to keep using him for big minutes, I'm just not sure yet. People to come back, as you said. Again, he might land in the category next week. If he scores decently again and you've got someone to cut, sure, go for it. But, I mean, I'm not going to tear my second row apart, Murray or Fafita. I'm not going to drop someone like that for Josh King, I wouldn't think, unless he really, really impresses this week. But
he's not going to score tries every week either, is he? Did he score one?
Set one up with a line break assist.
So he got 20 points for that. So
48 tackles, 13 runs. So good numbers, but he's not going to be an 80-minute forward, put it that way.
Surely. So if you take out that, he got 80 and 80, and he's not going to play 80 every week. So you'd have to lower your expectations. Yeah. But he might still be a handy pickup. I mean, like I say, you watch him this week and see. Hopefully the Bulldogs control him in Melbourne on Saturday night.
Pele will sort him out in his 15 minutes. Don't you worry about that.
Easy. Max King can take out Josh King.
Add another one with a lot of red flags around him. Lachlan Ilias, 7th most traded in, $363,000. Probably the best game of his young career thus far, but in a side with so many attacking weapons, like, you'd need to do it again this week to even consider, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, that's the game I didn't see, so I was a little bit surprised to see he score as high as he did, but it sounds like he played well.
He was unreal.
He's a good player. Like, I think he's a good young half, and like obviously last year was his first year in first grade, so we've seen plenty of blokes in their second year really step up. I thought Ezra Mann was the same for Brisbane, by the way. He was fantastic for them.
Wasn't he ever?
Yeah, he suddenly looked really dangerous. So, I'd have to watch him, but without seeing him, it's hard to comment. But I was surprised by his score.
Look, with Nico hurt at the moment, if you've got someone as your backup half next week and he performs well again, he might fit that cash grab mould and just see if he can work his way up to like 500k or something. I'm a bit like you. I really rate him, and he could just come on leaps and bounds this year. He ran a line off Cam Murray, I think it was. He'll keep potentially doing that. Let's see. But I mean, again, it's probably the theme of the day, but don't sort of run away and break up your side for these sort of blokes. If you've got someone to cut, maybe it's worth a short-term grab just to see what happens.
Matty, as our resident bunnies expert, firstly, I suppose you're out at the game at Shark Park on Saturday night. Your thoughts on Lachlan Ilias? He was outstanding.
Well, the Fox League actually released their ratings. The Sharks South game was one of I think could be the highest regular season game they've ever had with 660,000. Because I was on the hill at Shark Park, 660,000 had a better view than I did. I got to view none of that game because I was on this fucking back hill, family hill, but the family hill you can't drink. So then I got shoved to the corner, so I could only see
drink.
Yeah. So then I could only see this corner of the field. So when Ilias knocks the ball out of Ronnie's hand, I thought Ronnie dropped it over the line until I watched the replay when I got home.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had to watch the whole thing again on TV, and when I watched it the second time, Ilias is fantastic.
I love that you had the decision. You trekked out from the city out to Cronulla. We got back from Armidale at 5 o'clock, and we went straight out to Cronulla, and you had to get to the game, and you had the decision to watch the footy or sit in the corner with an obstructed view, but you could drink beer. Yeah,
and that's what I did because that drive. I needed a beer or two after that. But I forgot what the question was.
No, that was around Ilias. But, mate, the more important one was we were talking before about Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Not the quickest wing we've ever seen, but busted 9 tackles.
Yeah.
We saw Tane Milne named in the extended squad this week. Do you think he did enough to keep his spot, Thompson?
I think so. Like, he had a pretty poor error, but outside of that, like as you said, he made 9 tackle breaks. I know he got chased down by Ronaldo, but as you said, he's not there for his speed. That's AJ's there on the other side. They're completely different wingers. I think we need the big Isaac back there for now. If he has a couple of average games, like it's up to him. Because if he has 1 or 2 average games, then Tane's there ready because Tane's more than capable. He had a couple of brain explosions in the final series last year, but outside of that, like he's a good player. But I wouldn't be dropping Isaac for now.
Spy, Matty Burton, the most traded out player this week. It doesn't help that he's playing Melbourne in Melbourne this week. You picked him for a reason. He had a Barry Crocker on the weekend, but we know how much of a talent he is. We know he can bounce back, but will he? If you owned, would you be selling?
Yeah, he's probably one of the blokes I would be tempted to sell, just based on the doggies. And I think, as you probably know, down there, they need some combinations where it's not going to happen overnight. Could take a month, 6 weeks to really start to forge that. Put it like this, I don't want to say it's too loud because I want his ownership to stay low, but if you don't have Doueihi, you have to go Burton to Doueihi.
I think you have to do that. Agreed.
Don't clip that. But otherwise, who do you go to? I mean, I'm not sure if you've got Burton sitting there. I'd be reasonably happy to give him another week if you've got, say, Doueihi and Burton, and then you can downgrade him next week or go to someone else.
You go to Katoa next week, who I think is another one you ideally probably want one more look at.
And if Burto looks really good this week, he's then goes into the Tigers the week after, and maybe he's a hold. But I wouldn't be sort of super sold on him at this stage. I think he could be maybe a second half of the season buy.
Ads, you fluttered around it before and mentioned that how easily he could bounce back. If you can take your heart out of it and you're an owner, would you give him one more week?
Yeah, I would. I mean, like you say, it is tough when they're playing Melbourne. But, if you look at Matt's scores last year, he was a bit hot and cold Supercoach-wise last year, right?
He had something like 10 scores under 40, but still averaged about 58, I think it was.
Yeah, but equally, he won a whole bunch of games for the Bulldogs. I think he just finished just outside the top 10 in the Dally M. He's a young half. He's going to be still a bit like that. And so I think when he's on, and he's going to be kicking goals. I still think he's a really viable option for all the reasons why people did a week ago. to be honest, he wasn't the only bad player last week for the Dogs. Like, we had just a tough afternoon. Like, people...
It just
people
wasn't
think
your day,
Viliami
mate.
kick out, can't play second row. Like, no. So the guy can play, and I think it's a little bit sideways after 1 week. But at the same time, I can understand what you're saying with Doueihi. Like, Doueihi's a Supercoach weapon. I've got Doueihi, so I'm not going to change Doueihi.
Yeah.
My daughter has Burton. She's a Mad Dogs fan, and there's no way she's trying
She'll
to
keep the faith.
to Doueihi. Yeah, she's not trying to Doueihi. So.
I will say something stood out last week for Burton. It was first half, and he threw a nice dummy, and it just looked good. That sort of like that Burton running game. He didn't end up going through the line, but he's more than capable of crashing over a couple of times
Absolutely
on any given day, and then kicking goals. So we know what he can be about.
Anyone outside of Melbourne in Melbourne, and look, let's be realistic. They've got no middles at the moment. It's not helping the cause, and it's not changing anytime soon. So I think that is the factor.
Munster's out. It's not his side, but like they're missing Pappy and Munster. It's not elite Melbourne.
Yeah.
Although they'll be tough.
Boys, Brandon Smith, third most sold player. He had a HIA early on in this game, played, I believe, 58 minutes, scored mid-30s. Roosters were a shambles. It wasn't the Doggies' day, it wasn't the Roosters' day either. Spy, surely you give Cheese one more week.
Oh, it couldn't be more of a hold. This time next week, if he's not cutting the mustard, I'm happy to move him on. But
Sonny Luke come in.
He literally got knocked out pretty early, or not knocked out, but HIA pretty early, which throws your whole pattern out early. And then he spent a bit of time in the back row. And that I can't remember, it may have been because of injuries.
Yeah, because
Victor Radley went off.
Victor Radley went off,
so
Matt Lodge went off. They lost both of them.
He didn't get to play hooker, which is where you want him. Let's just give it a week, see how he goes.
And they were just blown off the park by the Dolphins. Like line speed, everything. They shut him out of the game. Same boat ads?
Yeah, I'm not selling him this week. But
you weren't convinced last week, were you, before round one?
No, I had him, and to be honest, if I was putting together my side again from the start of the season, I probably would go without him, actually. I thought... Just even watching, I thought, you know what, this isn't going to be the last time he's HIA'd off during a game.
Lunatic.
With his new independent doctor kind of regime making blokes go, he goes hard. Yeah. So does Victor Radley. And as soon as Victor Radley goes off, Cheese moves into it. So it's not... I reckon we're going to see plenty of games where his minutes do what they did on the weekend. And I don't know, he's just... I think he's not going to lose money at the moment. He's solid in the team. I'm not going to trade him out. But even when the Roosters have that bye in round 3, is it?
It's actually round 4. So that's your... I'm probably, realistically, I'd probably give him 3 weeks and I can trade him round 4. I'll have bigger things to do next week, I'd suggest, but you're spot on. Could be a round 4 trade if not cutting the mustard.
Keep him then, I reckon. And then reevaluate. And if he's had 2 good weeks and there's price rise, then you might keep him in there. But he's not a guaranteed... keeping the mid-year for me the way what I saw the other day.
For me on Brandon, it's just does he look likely or not? If he plays this week, he's looking dangerous. It's nice. But if he's sort of looking a bit more subdued or passing a lot early in a new side, then that's when I go, I probably don't want him at the moment. But we'll see.
I'm not overly concerned about Cheese. I think if he bangs out his 55 to 60 minutes, the Roosters will come good. He'll score well. That being said, I have Harry Grant at hooker with him, who was terrific last week. He's locked into my side and dare say won't be going anywhere. Sonny Luke, who scored about 60 in 25 minutes. Absurd that he played that many minutes, but surely that's rectified this week and he plays the 50 to 55 that we anticipated. So if Sonny Luke comes out and plays that and scores 50 odd again and Cheese is even only okay, you still might go down Spy from Cheese to Luke.
Cheese to Sonny, yeah. Also, Sonny looked unbelievable. It's like the second coming of Appy on the weekend. Hopefully, obviously, you're a Penrith fan, you hope that sticks, but gee, look good.
He played about the same number of minutes as Appy. What was going on there? Bizarre. Neither of them.
Spy, one of your boys, Tommy Talau, not one of your boys, but he's a Tigers boy, I should say.
He's one of my boys. I don't know him, but he's one of my boys.
301k, 19 points. 4th most sold player. The thing I'll say about these CT dubs is, especially cheapy CT dubs, they have their good weeks, they have their low weeks. It happens. And half the blokes went well this week at sub 400k are going to go shit this week, and it's going to flip around alternatively like the other boys. So surely give Tommy a week.
Definitely. He copped a cork. I don't know what minute, but he played at least half the game. He could barely stand up.
It was terrific in the second trial.
They were just short of numbers and he couldn't go off. And he hobbled out to the 78th.
He was busted out there, wasn't he?
Gee, he's a tough little character.
Yeah. Nights at Leichhardt, Sunday afternoon. I'll be out there. Like, it's a pretty friendly matchup for the Tigers, I think.
You have to own him this week. Just
tell you what, he'd be having nightmares about David Fafita, though.
Oh.
David ran through him. pretty
Dear.
comfortable.
I think you mix your
Yeah,
words up,
that's
mate.
right.
I think David Fafita's having nightmares about Tommy Tillett jamming in, outside in.
Boys, we spoke about Khan Pereira, who's the 5th most sold. Fits that exact billing. Like, his bottom dollar, it's going to take time. Like,
He's going to score a hat-trick at some point, isn't he? And
outside
then he'll
Forest.
make 150k in 3 weeks. It's
Yeah.
200k. Just even if you're never playing him, just leave him until he scores some tries. There's nowhere really to go. He's 200k.
We've seen this over the last couple of years. There's some of those centre wings, the cash cows, you just got to wait for them to get their little run and then sell them. And I reckon in the last couple of years we've seen people sell them too early. Actually, a couple of them developed into keepers almost for the last couple of years, where you could reliably have them as a backup if you were down at man. So you definitely wouldn't be
I
selling
honestly
them
think
for
the
1 week.
Titans-Tigers game as a whole is nearly a write-off Supercoach-wise. It was just an odd game of footy, and I think it'll just get maybe back to the norm a bit this week. I'm not saying play Khan Pereira, but just hold on for now. Let's see how he goes.
Especially there is no other obvious 200k winger that you look at and go, you must have. Like that, it just isn't one.
Maybe people going to Braden Williami at 240k, and Williami, he was solid, his mid-40s, but job security is always going to be a concern with him for me, and I just look at him, he's dual 2RF centre, which is really handy, but as I said, job security, they're not going to play the Knights in New Zealand every week. Obviously, a far tougher matchup against the Roosters this week, made less daunting by the injuries to their middles. But like Williami, who's quite popular, again, surprisingly 20% ownership. I thought that'd be a lot less, but adds another one that, like the Khan Pereira, I'll more than likely hold on to him for a while. But let's say the rest of the CT dub goes well this week, and Khan Pereira scores another 8, and Williami scores 70, well, just make the trade next week.
Yeah,
definitely.
that makes sense then.
We've spoken about Luke Garner. Hayes Perham, another one of your doggies, adds the 8th most sold, 33 points. Look, unconvincing. Look, I mean, we didn't have him in our side in the first place, but would you be selling now if you already owned? I mean, it wasn't 33 points. It's not horrible in a side that scored 1 try.
Yeah, I mean, not commenting about Hayes' game, because I actually thought he played quite well, actually. But I think before the season we looked and said, collectively, we didn't really think he was a Supercoach selection versus some other guys there. So I didn't see anything that would change my mind about him as a Supercoach player. I thought he was solid in terms of how he played for the team on the weekend. But, yeah, I can understand people selling him if they brought him in, because I wouldn't have had him in the first place just with other options out there.
Spy, this one really surprised me, and all the talk around it, and that's Tanner Boyd, the 10th most sold player. Obviously, these will chop and change as the coming days come forward. 35 points. People are making it out like he scored 5. I mean, I know it's not the best, but he's also probably not in genuine cheapie range. It was about 360k. It's not like we paid 600k for him and he didn't get his 70. 35 points for a 360k player. The Titans look good, the most important thing. He's kicking goals. The left edge of 4 and got a bit more ball, as it will, because he's the veteran playmaker in that side. Fafita went to the left. Again, doesn't change too much. I didn't think it was the end of the world.
Yeah, well, he scored 15 points off Teddy and Cleary. It's round 1. I can't stress how much the Titans just did not have the footy. When they had the ball, it was working out of their own end and then just kicking down the field, and then they took 4 opportunities in 4 cracks to score their tries. So just based on that first trial, Boyd was sweeping a little bit with Foran inside the attacking 20. He'll play both sides a little bit. He's got a good kicking game. He didn't have much of a chance at try assists, tries, repeat sets. They got in the 20 once, I think, and he set up a try with a bomb and then kicked the goal. So, there's awesome opportunity there for him to do something. Again, if it goes similar this weekend, we can look at it, but don't sell him.
They've got the good draw.
Not right now.
Adds plenty happening in the Melbourne Storm forward pack, and we'll rattle them all off in one, essentially. Christian Welch, 58 minutes for 67 points at 464k. Ticked every box owners wanted from him. I, unfortunately, do not have him. 3 offloads in there as well, so really encouraging.
Welch.
Eliesa Katoa and Trent Loiero both played their 80 minutes for 54 points and 47 respectively. Question from Pollyboy around that one. Thoughts on the role Tarek Sims will play when he comes back in. And last but not least, Harry Grant, 91.2. Owners will be very happy about him. So I suppose the big ones there are Welch, Katoa and Loiero. Where do you sit on them? And interested in bringing those blokes in this week, or happy to give it a week?
Welsh is the main one that I was disappointed not to own.
Yeah.
Like I looked at him and thought, damn, I had him in my side all kind of pre-season and then pulled him out the week before. And then you looked at him and like, man, he played really well. And at that front row position, I feel like he's going to make cash and be a really reliable starter, and I don't have him.
And he didn't do anything that we probably didn't predict. He solidified those thoughts. You know, who like a lot of people probably scrapped him for. Oh, mate, Franklin Pele, minutes to be won at the Doggies, and it just didn't eventuate. So
much like the Bulldogs, Van Ads, still building up a combination. This time next year, you'll listen to me on Welchie.
Oh.
Don't you worry.
Yeah. I think it's because I had Cotter. Anyway, you can't have them all, right?
Of course not.
Because I brought in Cameron Murray, and I'm stoked with that. But I could have, instead of having Cameron Murray, had Fafita probably, and then had Welsh instead of someone else. But anyway, can't have them all.
Can I ask a question? I think I don't know if you both did this, but for the people that started Stefano Udakamanu, and you get back to the edges in a second, but so I've got Welch in there, Udakamanu's on my bench. I feel really good about that.
Yeah.
Is that a concern where you go, oh, he didn't score a lot of points, Udakamanu, or is it just something where you hope he gets back to his 45, 50s moving forward, but it might be just a little bit of a worry at the moment?
It was a pass mark, but he didn't really threaten the line to score, whereas we've seen him score tries a couple of years ago. So I'd say he was a pass mark, but I don't feel good about him being in my 17.
Yeah, I'm not saying sell him. I'm saying a lot of people and a lot of sides I've seen had him starting with no backup front row.
I started. Well, I think that's how it all went. People went generally with a top tier front row forward, along with either Welch or Stefano, or a mid range front row and Stefano. Again, round one, he played 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ones where I go, all right.
Minutes were good.
All right, his 38 points wasn't great, but he played 50 minutes. He had 23 tackles, 11 runs. He only had one tackle break as his only attacking stat. We saw in a trial game there he busted 9 tackles. I'm like, all right, maybe that's too optimistic to expect anything like that, but surely he's going to start popping the odd offload and maybe busting 2 or 3 tackle breaks. I think that was his bare minimum, and the minutes were there.
Yeah.
I would agree, and I think if he gets those 50 minutes, you're cheering. I was just curious of how you thought around that sort of setup after round one. But yeah, I cut you off at the edge back rows for Melbourne, Liero and Katoa.
Yeah, a good. Speaking of Eli Katoa and base stats, I think it was 55 points on the weekend. Did not break a tackle. Did not have an offload. I said played 80 minutes entirely in base.
Busy. Ooh.
And Katoa this year, we sort of saw him and we spoke about him as being a high upside back rower who probably needs the attacking stats to be relevant. It was the complete opposite. Played his minutes and had the work rate.
Yeah. My only concern is where does Tarek Sims play? We just don't know yet. That's why we needed him to play
Tarek's
this week.
named this week, I know.
And what role's Bellamy asking him to play in that team? He might be asking him to play a certain style. Like, he was good, but it is unusual for him to not have a tackle break even. Like
Crazy.
It was bizarre. So he's a good watch this week, I reckon.
Big
hope,
watch.
I hope he makes no tackle breaks on Saturday.
Yeah, I bet you do.
He's definitely, I mean, all jokes aside, he's serious watch, because if he could add the upside to that base at his price, he's a good option. And he's not that owned, actually. I'm surprised by how few teams own him. I thought more teams would own him.
And Tarek, like, they're pretty light on middle forwards, Tarek. So I think he probably plays the middle.
Yeah.
So it's about 30% of teams got him. So it was Liero that was not very well owned.
I don't mind him.
Yeah,
Spy,
about 5%.
Harry Grant, you're a non-owner. Must have broken... It would have broken your wee little heart watching him scoring Golden Point, but I know you love the bloke, so there would have been a bit of appreciation.
I was so torn. It was night one. Rugby league was back. Harry scoring. Like, that's awesome. Bugger. I was like, rugby league, the love of the game won out. I did say to someone over the weekend, if you're watching Harry for 85 minutes or 80 minutes every week, obviously Golden Point, and you get too upset when he scores a try, it's going to be a very long season. So just curious on your guys' thoughts, because what I watched was he didn't get the attack what I expected to happen was he didn't quite get the running opportunities, and that's basically how it went, I thought, until that last run, apart from a couple across the 80. But he made about 56 tackles. So I was sort of like, he's flipped the script a little bit in that instead of just attacking stats, just killing it, he's like, if I can make 55 tackles or 45 a game and add in his repeat sets, try assists and all that, he's going to be an absolute monster. So I was like, this is nerve-wracking. So he's already...
I know what you mean, though. If he hadn't scored if he hadn't scored a solo try in Golden Point, we'd be sitting here saying
He would have got 58, I
owners would be
think it
very
was.
disappointed with his score, yeah.
58. So, like, I was pretty happy till then, but just the way it unfolded, I don't know if he's going to keep making big tackles and maybe doing a little bit less with their forward pack roll on, or he's going to go back to his, maybe more like 35 tackles and get more attacking chances. I think that's it's just a small sample. It's one round. We just don't know yet. So I obviously won't grab him this week, but it's always nervous not owning Harry.
It's
that's
just a
for
player
sure.
for me that I don't like watching him without having him on my side. Like you
It's
were describing.
awful.
It's because you love him. He's such a good hooker.
You want him to dominate.
Yeah,
So,
it's a bit like watching David Fafita on the weekend without him. He runs through the line, you're like, oh my God, what's this going to cost me? It's going to kill me. And I got away with it on Fafita, but Harry does that every week.
Yeah,
Harry
Harry does do it every week. Like, he's a gun.
He's just so lovable too.
And the other
He's a
thing,
good fella.
Melbourne will lose a lot without Harry Grant. Without Cameron Munster there, but as if Harry Grant doesn't increase his play.
He steps up. His kicking game's so underrated. I'm a very nervous non-owner. Even though I nearly got away with a bit of magic with his 58 till then, I am nervous. But the facts are remain, he still does need to average, 86 or something to maintain that average. So if he does do that, it's not killing me. I've spent money elsewhere, but he's not far away from the Spy squad. I'll give you the tip if he keeps going.
Yeah. Bronson Garlick. So Tyron Wishart, who was a bit of a threat to take some minutes off him last week as the utility, he's been named at 5'8". Whether that stays there for the weekend, we'll see. But as it stands, good for him. They do have Bronson Garlick who can play hooker there, but I think he's sort of transitioning into, and I might be wrong, but transitioning into more of a back rower.
He was, and he played very well.
Yeah,
just quietly.
so good for his minutes.
Only thing I'd say as well on Harry is Bellamy wants round one in the books. He loves starting with a win, so he's like, boys, I need your minutes. Maybe he does play 65 this week. We just don't know yet, so that's why it's just important not to overreact to anything. He could have gone low. He could have got 120. Let's see what unrolls and see how the rest of the squad looks before making any moves.
There was a big watch on the Parramatta Eels back rowers in Bryce Cartwright and Matt Doueihi. Cardi went the distance, 59 points. Matty Doueihi, 73 minutes, obviously an 84-minute game for 34 points. Cardi solid enough. Doueihi definitely underwhelming, but the minutes were both good for them at 234k. Any interest in those two?
Not at the moment, mate, for me. I just think there's still too much uncertainty with Matto coming back and Sean Lane coming back. And just the rotation, I don't know. I'd definitely not Doueihi with that initial score. Like it's not like he's put 100 out there. Yeah, I just think they're going to lose minutes soonish. I just don't know how quick. And I've been to the Cardi party too many times and been disappointed with what the owner put on.
Still hungover.
Yeah, it's not my favourite party. Now, I mean, if they come out this week and one of them absolutely kills it, like Cartwright gets a massive score, maybe we might have to just in terms of a cheapie proposition, but no, not yet for me.
Yeah, through one of the great benders of a party early on in his career, Cardi, and then he's tried to emulate it ever since.
He's trying to go back.
Been a flop.
He's trying to go back to school. He's at 28. And it's just not working. But maybe this is the year post COVID.
Just on them, I was going to say, like Matto, the preference is from Brad Arthur, obviously, to use him, inject him as a middle forward. I'm just not convinced. I'm less convinced now that he won't go back to an edge because Hopgood played 80 minutes and was unbelievable. Junior Bolo and Regan Campbell-Gillard, they're pretty big minute middles. I know they're still a bit light on there, but until Sean Lane comes back, I just wouldn't be surprised to see Matto come in and play straight in an edge for either of these two.
Yeah, it's possible. I just don't know what's going to happen there. I spoke to you Thursday, Ab. I had a cheapie spot open up ads, and I didn't know who to pick out of Doueihi and Cartwright. Called Tim. I was like, I'm going to go Cartwright. Just got a feeling. He goes, I just think you should do Doueihi. I'm like, okay, I'll trust you. You've looked into teams more than me, and what I like about it, just on that game, Cartwright was a standout Supercoach-wise, but Doueihi got the right edge, which means hopefully they're grooming him for that potentially long-term. Well, because Sean Lane's come back left 100%. So I would have thought if they wanted to maybe play Cartwright right edge, they could still swap them, but that gave me a bit of confidence. And Doueihi, he ran quite well. He had nearly made a line break, just called back for a forward pass. Different player to Cardi, more direct. Maybe that suits outside.
Runs a good line. I thought he actually looked all right, Doueihi. And the logic behind that when he called was that there was a quote from Brad Arthur saying they wanted him to transition. He said, we'll need him to play 80 minutes for us at stages this year. Yeah. And there hadn't been much word around Cardi. I was like, well, as far as being a safe bet goes, I thought he was the safer. And I still probably think he is.
Yeah, and I think he's better for the run too. Like, it's a tough hit out against Melbourne round one. So, yeah, hopefully he kicks on.
Are we both Kalen Ponga owners, fellas, or either of us?
No,
Spy?
Nah,
I thought you had him. You went off him.
never had him.
Never.
I said I was a definite no.
What'd you make of him?
Yeah, I thought he was awesome, because he always is.
72 points, 69 minutes, controversial HIA.
He got held up late. He did get the line break for that, noting that, because he got to the
Thank
fullback.
you, Chans.
Yep, but what a tackle. He actually... Chans won the game for the Warriors with that
Yeah.
tackle. That puts Knights in front. Is incredible. I thought Kalen was I thought he was outstanding. I thought he slotted in nicely to 5'8". Jackson Hastings just puts him in good positions. It's so good for him, because previous seasons with Kalen, if you own him, he's just not getting the ball where you want him to. He did. My concern remains exactly that. He got HIA'd again. If that happens in the 3rd minute, 10th minute, he might not be back.
So scary.
Then he could
isn't
miss
it?
weeks. But at his price, if he goes well again this week, yeah, he's definitely an option. But you just got to be aware there's a lot of risk involved in KP.
Add the Warriors back row. We were all looking at Murata Niokore and thought he'd be the one to get the big minutes there. He played 60, which is fine. Didn't score very well. Jackson Ford, one of the stories of the weekend, he got the 80 minutes at 281k, scored really well, had a decent enough work rate. And Tohu Harris there as well, 80 minutes in the front row for, I think it was like 88 points, an enormous workload. I mean, just before we move on in the podcast, we've got a few extra things to get through. Is Niokore a sell for owners? Jackson Ford, yes or no? Tohu Harris, what do we got?
I think it's the same as everything else we've been talking about. I'd give it another week. I reckon if Jackson Ford plays like that again, he's in my side, because he looked good. He made a line break. He actually just looked a lot more dynamic than I was expecting. And at 280k, if he plays like that again, he's probably a must from a cheapie point of view.
Yeah.
Niokore, if I had him, I wouldn't be selling him, but I'm quite happy to not own him. Tohu, I mean, he's not going to get 80 minutes every week, but I think I said on the chat during the week, I just reckon he's the most underrated player in Supercoach over the last few years. He just always punches out big scores, and we don't tend to talk about him much. I don't know if it's because he's a Warrior, but the guy is just a Supercoach consistent weapon.
And the key is, as I think we touched on possibly last week, just available at front row forward. So he's not out there competing against the upside guys of Sean Lane and Cam Murray and these sorts of blokes. Spy, of them three, any on your radar?
Jackson Ford, the biggest one, just as a money-making cheapie.
Just quickly, Tohu Harris, 88 points in 80 minutes, 54 tackles, 23 runs.
Whoa.
Which is enormous stats.
He can't do that every week, can he? Surely.
He can't. He's
Maybe
a bit
he
of an
can.
animal. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you can.
He's a beast.
Sorry, Spy?
No idea. Carry on.
Yeah. Give them...
Jackson Ford, I think we were all saying the same thing. Jackson Ford, a watch, and if he does what he did last week, he's in.
Just as an early trade, I was a little bit tempted to buy it, but you just see trap, don't you? Like one good week. As
Just on trades, like we spoke about before, but if you can find one that can pay off and do it now, just get you that extra trade next week in one of the most vital weekends
So,
of the
which
year.
one's the safest one to do is the
I'll
question.
be having a look. I'll be
I could just see
perusing the
myself going
side.
Garner to Ford, and then next week, Ford getting 40 minutes, and me going, why did I do that? Like
Garner playing 80 and getting
Forward
a double.
back to Garner.
And then thinking, what a dumb move. So
Yeah, and genuinely could be forward back to Garner next week. Oh,
I'd only do it for someone I know I don't want. Like, if I could get Pele to forward, I might do that.
yeah.
I think we should all say, let's not do Garner to Ford, because if we do,
Could
we
hurt ya.
know that's a silly move after 1 week.
I know.
Yep.
Guys, we're excited to link up with betr for the 2023 footy season. Each round of the season, we'll be producing exclusive SC Playbook markets of our own. Extremely excited. We've now got access to integrating into our markets official NRL fantasy markets. So just to clarify, that's not NRL Supercoach, it's NRL Fantasy. So NRL Fantasy run by the NRL. Same thing, Fantasy NRL, that sort of thing. Just a slightly different scoring system. So jump on there and just check out their scoring system so you are aware of if you are going to follow us into any of these markets. But the SC Playbook betr multi for the week will be working at Adam Doueihi having a field day out at Leichhardt there against the Knights in round 2. We've got $3 for him to score 50 plus NRL fantasy points into David Nofoaluma anytime try scorer at $3. To follow along, you can find the link to the market in any of our articles at scplaybook.com.au this week or in our YouTube description. By going through those channels, it will let betr know that we sent you, so it'd be much appreciated if you could do it if you are linking up. Of course, though, it is for those aged 18 plus only, and please remember to gamble responsibly. Ads, round 2, trades and skippers. What are you looking at?
I think trades I'm probably going to hold tight, I reckon.
Yep.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, the only thing I might have looked at Pele, but I just don't know who to bring him in for. So no, I think I'm going to hold tight on trades. Skippers, I haven't really had a look. I was just looking now. Like I went Teddy last week. Always like going Teddy, but man, the Roosters were off, and they did start last year. I think they lost their first 2, didn't they?
I'd have to check round 2.
They did. They did. They were 0 from 2.
They were quite off the pace, and so.
And their middles, they've lost Lodge and probably more than likely Victor Radley as well if he doesn't pass concussion protocol. So
I'm a little bit reluctant there. Equally, I wasn't huge on the way Penrith played. I thought they were well off, so they might need a little bit of time. So I don't know. I'd love to be able to find someone other than Cleary or Teddy, but
Thursday night skipper. Penrith Thursday night, they are, yeah. Thursday night skippers suck too. I hate doing it.
Scary.
I know this might sound crazy. I might even consider someone like Doueihi against the Knights.
I don't mind it.
It's not crazy. It's not crazy at all.
Spy, I gather you might be skipping Doueihi.
Well,
after the theme of this podcast.
I hadn't thought a whole lot about it just yet. I was probably going to roll with Teddy back to bounce back, should I say. He scored 84 in round 2 last year after a dud opener. So I'll be fired up the Chookies, maybe get the job done. But I do love my Doueihi, and I reckon the Tigers are going to bounce back this week at home. So I think it'll probably come from one of those afternoon matches, Saturday or Sunday arvo.
Any trades?
Trades was maybe Pele to someone, but I don't think I would have the cash. I don't think I'm confident in going to Mawali just yet. I might do that, but probably not. And then we didn't mention Egan Butcher, but I just wanted to note he still made 40 tackles in 70 minutes.
Don't sell Egan Butcher.
He got sin bin. What an absolute killer that was. And then he still had 5 runs, which wasn't a heap, but his role will grow.
You take a look. I mentioned earlier about you wanting the round 1. You want to see blokes get the minutes that you're anticipating and the role. Looked like he was set to play 80 minutes. A little bit hard to confirm because there were injuries, but looked set to play 80 minutes on the edge. And there's a few question marks about what edge he played for the Roosters. Got the golden left edge spot outside Luke Keary.
Yeah, and combinations are out. He dropped a ball early that they put behind him, and then he got absolutely belted by Kafusi, who was on a mission.
Yeah,
how good was that? And then I have a feeling he might have even gone in the middle to do a bit of defensive work at one point.
He did.
So, I mean, he could easily bank you 50 tackles, and then once his runs come, I know he could be a try scorer. So I love Egan. Won't be selling him, so probably nothing. Just going to try hold fire.
Yeah, mate, I'm thinking similar at this stage. Well, if there's one that emerges a bit cleaner later in the week, it is I'd like to get ahead of the pack just to save the extra trade have the extra trade available, should I say, for next week.
Yeah.
Big chance I'll be boosting next week using one of them. After Ad saying it's a stupid trade that we shouldn't do, I was eyeing off Garner to Ford. That
We
was
can have counselling sessions with each other during the week.
that was trying to get ahead of the pack. So
Garner does have the bye round 3.
I know.
So,
that's why I'm part of it as well.
Yeah.
So looking at that one, and then I think I just want another week to if Pele goes no good again, to look at Shaq or I didn't get into him there, but Terrell May is a sneaky one who scored right on the weekend in limited time, who could get more minutes with Matty Lodge out for a while. Victor Radley might miss this week, so one to keep an eye on, probably more for next week as a potential buy.
Lumi Lou, Dolphins come off the bench. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how he pronounce it. He was unbelievable.
Yeah.
300k centre.
Yeah.
So just keep an eye on him. It's not for this. So
Swallowed poor old Sammy Walker.
It was so, geez, good.
Fellas, a few quick questions to wrap it up. Let's go. Question from the George on the Roosters middles. Is Lindsay Collin Supercoach relevant at front row forward? 455k. He's an origin prop. Coming back from injury, I think it was last season. He's had a few, the poor bugger. 66 points in 55 minutes, 36 tackles, 5 tackle breaks, the most encouraging thing, 13 runs. Now, probably inflated minutes due to the injuries we just mentioned, but adds mid-range front row forward, could be benefiting from the minutes with injuries elsewhere, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, he's a solid player. I mean, look, it's a kangaroo. I'd probably just have Christian Welsh in front of him at that price.
Yeah. Offloading ability, a big part of that, isn't it?
Yeah, and he looked good, Christian Welsh. So if I was tossing up someone at that range, if I had the money, it would be Welsh. But Collins is a solid player.
Just big watch this weekend for minutes and output.
Yeah.
Spy, one from Hayden Williams. How did the Spies' fantasy NBA season go? Keeping in mind, Spy, we're on a schedule here. We've got a time limit, but what do we got for us? I've never met a bloke that plays more fantasy sports at once than you. This is just one of many, but This is probably your number 2. Well, Big Bash is number 2 to NRL. NBA's your number 3, we'd say.
Yeah, NBA's massive. It's me and the boys. What a dagger of a question to ask me. I got done yesterday. The way it works, you got to win 5 of 9 categories or more. I had 4. My mate Scully had 5. And in 4 categories, I went into double overtime in the match I had, and I had 2 players. And I was down by 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 threes. I'm like, I just need one of them. I'm like, I need triple overtime. And then it nearly went into triple OT. I got done. I couldn't have asked more of the boys. Scully stepped up and, just carry on.
It was big of you to show up today, mate, after that one.
It's huge. But it hurt. It's gut-wrenching end to a year I came home strong in.
Mate, this one's not going to lift your mood either, the question from Sean Ford, but are you worried about Brian To'o's output? A potential downgrade next week, he says.
He's a potential downgrade in that we might need cash from somewhere. But in the fair income department, he looked so quick and light, I thought. I really noticed just compared to last year when he was just a bit bulkier with his injury or whatever he was carrying. He looked fast, strong. He pumped out 43 in the wet. Penrith got dominated. He had no attacking stats. He didn't tackle bust much. I think he had 1 offload. What I noticed is, especially in the World Cup Challenge and round 1 at Port Rain in Penrith, both games, that hurts wingers, of course it does. I think you'll find sides have had a bit of success jamming in on Penrith to start the season. St Helens did it well. Brisbane did it well. Cleary tried to lob for Toa at one point and just didn't execute. But in dry weather, quicker play the balls in the middle, quicker through the hands, I think you might see a little bit more space for Brian. I think given his work rate and how fit he looks, I'd be reluctant to sell him. But I'm not saying I won't, because there could just be... I couldn't need to sell someone next week to get a couple of gun.
Again, the round 4 buy looming, so if he's got a big break even and a cheapie
that's the thing, and maybe he comes back later. But I mean, I'm actually pretty comfortable in what I saw from a fitness standpoint. It's just how well do Penrith go is probably the question once they hit some dry weather.
Ads, last one to wrap it up for the SC Playbook podcast today from Zach Osler. Is Big Shaq the cheapie front row forward pick of the bunch now? Good minutes on the weekend, should get them again. Sort of, again, come from nowhere. I suppose injuries have elevated his role.
Yeah, that was the game I didn't watch, remember, so I can't really comment.
True,
yeah.
Good hosting there.
Yeah, but it was probably one of the stats that surprised me the most without seeing the game. Because I was surprised by how many points he had. Like, okay, he's obviously had a much bigger work rate than I'd seen him before, so... Yeah, I'll keep an eye on him this week, but I was a little bit surprised by the one.
I think Mo Ali and Shaq, as we've already mentioned earlier in the podcast, but because of the early injuries in the game to Arrow and to Tola, just watch their minutes this week. I wouldn't want to go early on them.
I'm so tentative to pick anyone based on minutes gained from an in-game injury. Like, it's, not saying it can't work out, but it's not keen really.
Spy, despite the NBA fantasy debacle, been good to have you, mate.
Cheers, boys, and I'll bounce back like it's NRL season. So I'm ready to go.
Thank you, mate.
No worries. Thanks, boys. Good luck.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck in Supercoach round 2.